Ready.
Excellent, thank you. All right, T7, technical session number 7, random access memory. Our objectives will be to define a system memory, describe the different types of technologies that we use that are embedded in the RAM and different types of RAM that you can use for like single inline memory versus dual inline memory. Articulate the process, including key questions to answer when should you upgrade your memory, like when your systems are running slow and various things like that. Determine how to select the right types of memory so that you don't find something that's incompatible with the particular machine you are using. And go through the process step by step of installing the memory. We do also have a quick video to go along with that they sum it up pretty concisely at the end. Identify common pitfalls when selecting or installing memory, and identify common problems that come up with memory and describe how to solve them. One of the most, I guess, common ones that you will see as far as a behavior skill is adaptability. Always need to, adapt to ever-changing technologies, ever-changing processes, especially with regards to IT, because there's constantly new stuff coming down the pike. We have to constantly change how we are going to approach these problems. New problems are going to come up. We got to find ways to solve them. That's part of what we're here for. And be persistent in the pursuit of those solutions, as we talked about in earlier T sessions. Even if you have handed that problem off, I highly recommend going back later and talking to them and saying, hey, how'd you solve it? Because these are the types of things that will help make you a more valuable employee within the IT field, is your pursuit of those answers. And then, not just being complacent with handing it off, wanting to know actually how you solve those problems. Key terms that we're going to go over in this particular session. Volatile memory. We went over this one a little bit earlier. Brought it up a couple times. It is memory that when power is turned off, all that memory is wiped clean. There is nothing left on it. And RAM is a form of volatile memory. What was the other type that we talked about? Where were we specifically talking about volatile memory? Anybody? Other than just the RAM chips.
The CMOS.
There you go. Thank you.
CMOS.
CMOS. And what is stored in the CMOS RAM?
BIOS for startup.
Is it the BIOS, or more specifically?
Set of instructions, maybe that might be testing host.
Yeah, the settings and configurations of the BIOS, because you have the actual BIOS, which is on the RAM or the ROM, the read-only memory, which is non-volatile memory. So even if the power is removed, the instructions and code that is on that chip remains. So that is non-volatile memory. That is where the actual BIOS is. But the configurations like date, time, where to look for the operating system, all of that stuff, that is kept in the CMOS RAM, which is a...
So the boot order is in the CMOS RAM?
Do what?
The boot order is in a CMOS RAM?
The configuration for the boot order, yes. If you change the configurations, okay, that will be kept in CMOS RAM.
Okay.
So any configurations that you would change from the standards that are initially in place when you first boot that computer up, all of that is kept in the CMOS RAM. All right. Then we have unbuffered memory, which deals directly with the chipset controller. And then you have buffered memory, which helps the chipsets handle a large load. If the system has a lot of memory, you'll see this on servers and stuff like that. If they're going to be accessing the same thing over and over and over again, they'll maintain a buffer so that they don't have to keep requesting that information. It's set in the memory with, for them, and they can keep passing it out and holding on to it versus having unbuffered memory where it just kind of passes through. All right, and then you have single-sided RAM, where it has the chips only on one side of the stick. Then you have double-sided RAM, where it has chips on both sides of the stick. And so single sided RAM will be a SIM, single inline memory, and then you have the dual inline memory. And even though nowadays I do understand they will still put all the chips on one side, they will speak as if it is dual inline. Any questions so far with regards to this? So, quick question. Hard drive, is that volatile or non-volatile?
Volatile.
Volatile.
Your hard drive is volatile memory? Any other,
Non-volatile.
what?
It is non-volatile.
Non-volatile, non-volatile.
There you go. I think it would be pretty scary if everything on your hard drive erased when it lost power. Like if you lost all your documents, your operating system, everything, as soon as you turn off the power, all that was gone. That would be pretty terrifying. I'd have like 6 uninterruptible power supplies hooked up to my computer to make sure that never happened. So the BIOS, volatile or non-volatile?
Non-volatile.
All right. DJ, you had your hand up. All right. See the BIOS, the CMOS RAM, is that volatile or non-volatile, DJ?
Sorry, I just had my hand up because I had a question at first, but you already answered it.
Okay.
Non-volatile. Wait, no, volatile.
Volatile, there you go. That's the configuration for the BIOS. So those are those temporary settings that we put in there. So when the power gets decreased on that, we lose all that memory. What do we, go ahead.
So does volatile mean like it's memory that's not, it won't mess up like the main, like everything else in the computer? Like it's the information that's not really needed as much as everything else?
Not necessarily. Volatile memory is like temporary storage. Like the when we put the RAM in our computer, see, like if you're watching a movie, you know, movies just a rapid rate of stationary pictures. That's what you're basically watching. So, you know, it's moving at, I think, what was it? The slowest rate that it actually looks like a moving picture is 32 frame rates per second. So 32 frames a second. You know, each stationary picture, if you flash in front of you, it'll look like a moving picture. Now, RAM is going to show you those one at a time, and it's going to hold on to one. It's going to show it to you, and then it's going to let it go, and it's going to grab the next one. It's going to show it to you. It's going to grab the next one. It's going to show it to you. And each time it's showing it to you, it's gone. It's not there anymore.
Okay, so it's
So
like
it's
getting
only
rid of
there
the
for a
last one?
second. It's holding it for you, and so that you can manipulate it and see it, and then it lets it go and it's gone. That's how volatile works.
Got it.
It needs some type of connection, some type of power to make it work. Once you turn that power off, it's gone.
Yeah,
RAM
it
doesn't
wipes
hold
itself
anything once
clean.
the power's down.
As soon as the power's turned off, it's all gone.
All gone.
So volatile is basically just memory that can be used and then erased rapidly.
Yes, and that's what it's constantly doing. It's constantly refreshing itself and erasing itself and using it, and that's active memory. That's memory that you are currently using at any given time. So if you're playing a game, if you're watching a movie, if you're working on a spreadsheet, those things are going to be in active memory. You're currently working on them. They're not being held in a stationary storage capacity like they would be if they were on your hard drive, which is non-volatile memory. So it doesn't matter if you turn off the power to it, whatever's in there is in a stationary state and will not change.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, lost my train of thought. Here we go. Oh, we just talked about that. There we go. Here we go. Memory definition. It's basically where, it's just we're talking about, it's active memory. It's basically what the computer is currently working on at this point. It will take it, it will hold on to it while you work on it and let it go immediately, grab the next piece, hold on to it while you're working on it, let it go. And this information is stored basically using on and off switches, binary, where a 1 means the switch is on, 0 means the switch is off. So who can tell me what is the smallest unit of measurement for binary? What do we call it?
It is bit.
A bit.
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 All right. Now, we cluster it up a little bit. We have 8 of them. What is that called?
Byte.
Byte. All right. Now, if we cut that in half, what do we have?
A nibble.
Hey, there we go. So this is going to be the different units of measurement for small bits of information. So you have the bit, which is a single 1 or 0, on or off. You put 4 of them together, you get a nibble. You put 8 of them together, and you get a byte. So,
Mega, kilo.
yes, megabytes, kilobytes, gigabytes, terabytes. I think we're all the way up to like petabytes now. So it keeps going on and on. Who named them? I honestly don't know. Do you know that one, Emmanuel, off the top of your head, or are you asking to check my memory?
Yeah, I will have to go onto my Googles to find that out, but
Yeah.
I forget who created naming system.
We don't know off the top of our head, but we are fluent in Google. All right. So we will find that information.
He was saying it's weird the names that they gave him, but yeah, nibble. I got you. Nibble, bite.
No,
bit,
not
I got you.
nimble, nibble, like a small
Nibble.
bite, a nibble, like you're taking a small chunk out of it. So you have a bit, which is a tiny, like a crumb, and then you have a nibble, which is a little bit more than that, and then you have a bite, which is a big one. All right, moving along. So we start with ROM, which is like the BIOS we were talking about earlier, which is non-volatile permanent memory, does not change. It's held in a stable state and cannot change unless it is replaced, although that is different now because we actually can flash a BIOS and change it so that's kind of a legacy term that they're still using to this date. This one stores system information, host routine, BIOS, boot instructions, and you got the ROM chips, and then there's the erasable programming, which is what we're talking about. They can actually be updated. And then the electrically erasable programmable, which is the more modern versions of the RAM chips. Who can tell me off the top of their head, what does BIOS stand for? What does that acronym stand for? We just went over it this morning. Go ahead, Jackie.
Basic input output services.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Beautiful. And who wants to tell me what is replacing BIOS? BIOS is the old system. What are we using now?
UEFI.
Perfect, Bogus. Appreciate it. And we're going to go over this one again because we stumbled on it a little bit this morning, but I am confident we will get it. What does POST stand for?
Power on self-task.
Excellent, Kendall. Thank you. All right. All right, random access memory, or RAM. This is the majority of what we will be dealing with today in this technical session, and there are different kinds. See, who wants to read out for me real quick? Layla, go ahead and read for us.
Random access memory, dynamic RAM or DRAM, stores data for only a fraction of a second before losing it. To maintain stored data, the system must constantly refresh DRAM. This reduces performance. DRAM is packaged as SIMS, single inline memory module, or DIMMs, dual inline memory module. Static RAM retains information without the need for refreshing as long as the computer's power is on, which is volatile. CMOS RAM is memory that uses a small battery to keep its volatile state always retained. It stores all motherboard configuration data. Synchronous DRAM, designed to operate at clock speed. If the system bus is 100 MHz, then SDRAM matches that frequency. SDRAM is referred to with a PC triple X, where the triple X is the bus speed.
Excellent. Thank you, Layla. Now, the older forms of RAM will be the DRAMs, the DRAMs. Those are going to be your older forms of RAM. What we are moving into today, what we have been using for quite some time, is the synchronous DRAM, or SDRAM. And that PC number down at the bottom is going to be typically what you would, be the speed at which the RAM can operate. So, and who can tell me, because it's mentioning the clock speed, what sets the clock speed in the computer? Where does that come from?
Quartz thing.
There's a quartz crystal. Comes from the clock manager. Excellent, thank you. And so what's going to happen is this RAM can send out a pulse of bits, one, per each channel that it operates on. And it's based on the clock speed. So think of it like a metronome. We were talking about earlier where you have the metronome. And, think about the metronome kind of going up and down. Each pulse, when it goes up and comes back down, that is one clock cycle. So your first generation of SDRAM could send out one pulse per clock cycle. So it would go up, pulse, 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 one bit out each channel at that point. So we were just talking about this earlier. SDRAM, it is the most modern type, and it holds instructional data used by the CPU to kind of help the CPU out, because the CPU can't hold all that information at one point. If you are currently operating with like 30 windows open on your computer, your RAM is having to hold on to all of that information until such point when you need it or you want to manipulate it. So it's all active, it's all holding on to all of that in case you need it, which is why they'll always ask you, like, my computer's running slow. Have you closed down a lot of your windows, or do you have 64 windows open on your screen? I'm guilty of this myself on numerous occasions. When I'm trying to get ready for class, I'll have 20, 30 windows open at a time. And this is tied to the system clock. And the result of this is there's no actual wasted time. And the memory controller chip is what's kind of like the traffic cop, where it's like, helping push this stuff back and forth between the CPU and the North Bridge and making sure everybody has what they need, and the traffic between the two is flowing in an efficient manner. So that's basically what the memory controller chip is doing. So any questions so far? All right. Form factor. We talked about this with motherboards. As we were saying, it's basically just a fancy way of telling you different shapes. And so whenever they're talking about a form factor, it's what shape, or design are they operating in. So we have the DIMMs, which is the dual inline memory modules, and that typically goes into your standard PCs. And then you have SODIMMs, which is down here. And that's going to be typically used for your typical laptops. And then you have micro DIMMs over here that'll work for your smaller notebooks and things of that nature. Up here has a standard memory bank for a RAM, RAM chip, as we had seen when we were working with the motherboards. All right. DDR. stands for double data rate. SDRAM. So basically, remember we were talking about the metronome and how SDRAM is kind of going and it's hitting at each cycle, it's tapping. Now, when you operate on a double data rate, it's trying to be a little more efficient. So instead of quarter notes, where it's hitting every time on the beat, these are going to be operating kind of like eighth notes. So they're going to hit at the bottom of the clock cycle and again at the top of the clock cycle. So you're going to get 2 pulses for every cycle of the clock. So it's a double data rate, 2 times the amount of data passed through in a single clock cycle. So it'll hit at the bottom and at the top. So as it's moving, you're pushing through twice as much data. Does that make sense to everyone? Yes. Okay. I don't know if you had your hand up or you're saying okay there, Frank. Gotcha. Thank you. All right. Now, typical Gen 1 DDR SDRAM uses a 184 pin connector. Yes, you do need to know that. So, first gen DDR SDRAM, 184 pins. They typically can go somewhere between 64 megabytes of RAM up to 2 gigs. SODIMMs. Can somebody tell me where we would typically see the SODIMMs we just talked about? So you have the DDR SDRAM and then you have the SODIMM. Will.
The laptops.
Very good. Laptops. And the SO and SODIMM, what does that stand for?
Small outline.
Excellent, Jackie. Small outline, dual inline memory module. And those have 200 pins. So you will definitely need to know that. Did you have a question, Will?
Yes, I did, Professor. Can you refresh my memory? What are pins again? So that way it'll make more sense what you're saying.
Okay. Let me go back here. All right. So you see the RAM blade right here, the RAM chip?
Yes.
Hey, see these like this gold connector parts down here?
Okay.
The very bottom. And you'll see all these tiny little lines in between here. Can you see it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so each one of those little tiny segments is a pin. So what they're meaning when they say 200 pins, like on the SODIMM, there's 200 tiny little segments along the bottom of this that are going to make connection with that computer when it slips into that slot.
Okay. Wow. So in that DIMM, there's 184 pins.
Yes.
I understand now. Okay. Got it. Wow.
That's where that pin count is coming from, is along the bottom here.
That's a lot of pins for so
Yes.
I got it now. I got it.
Good question though.
Thank you, Professor.
So, and then we have the micro DIMMs, which let's see here. Scott, where would you see a micro DIMM?
Where would I see? I'm sorry, I've kind of
A micro DIMM.
don't know.
Okay.
Micro dim.
Micro DIMM.
So
So SODIMM goes in a laptop.
Mhm.
DIMM goes into a regular desktop. Where would a micro DIMM go?
So the micro dim will go inside the RAM.
Well, micro DIMM is RAM.
Right. It would go to the
Marvin's trying to
tablet.
help you out.
Ding, 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 ding.
The tablet.
There you go. Smaller notebooks and tablets. You'll see
Forgive me.
micro
I'm sorry. I'm
DIMMs.
just like in
No
and out.
problem. No problem. It's a lot coming in today on this.
William has a question.
Go ahead, William.
All right, just one more time again, the pins, what's the pins on again? What device is that on?
That's on the RAM module or
RAM module? Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
there you go. Here's a whole RAM module right here. And they call them DIMMs, SODIMMs, DDR RAM. There's different terms they'll use for the same thing. DDR SDRAM, they're common terms you'll use. And then in the bottom of these, where you're going to be pushing it in to this RAM bank right here, these are the connectors that are going to be talking to the computer. That's where the connection point where the computer is going to be able to read the RAM and utilize that memory.
The connectors are the right above the pins?
No,
those
the
little-
pins are the connectors.
Oh, my bad. Okay, gotcha. Okay, the pins are.
You know,
the
much like when we were talking about the pin grid array on CPU, it goes in and all those little pins go into the little ports. And those pins that are going in, those are those connectors that are going to be talking with the actual motherboard. The same thing's happening here, but they're along the side of this blade here. And then you'll put the blade vertically down into the motherboard and it will clip in.
So those pins are actually making communication to every little thing.
That's what makes it
There you go, Will.
communication possible.
Wow.
There you go.
My mind is blown. All right.
So as that number goes up, what happens, Will?
Meaning it's more micro because
More communication, right?
it'll take a lot more work. More
It
work.
can handle more, it can
Yeah.
communicate faster. Exactly right.
That's why a tablet will take a lot more work. Okay, I got it. It makes sense.
And as we go up and as Kelly will show, that number's getting bigger. 184, 200, 172, 244, 288. So that number's going to keep going up as we increase the performance of those RAM modules.
How much is in a smartphone? Is there a RAM in the smartphone? No, right?
Oh yeah, smartphones have RAM.
Guess, would that be under micro or that is that higher? Is
I
that
think they
higher?
have like a Pico RAM. I mean, it's much smaller, and it's typically built into the motherboard of the mobile device. It's not something that would be upgraded in a mobile device.
Right.
Wow, capiche. Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So down here, this PC rating is the total bandwidth that a RAM blade can offer in megabytes per second. So you have your DDR speed rating, you have your clock speed, and then your PC rating. And I believe it is this number times 8. So this number times 8. And then you multiply it by this, and you will get your PC speed rating. I will double check that math for you, but I'm fairly certain that that's how it is calculated. I don't know if Marvin, if you can check that for me real quick.
I always looked at it as it doubles. So clock to speed rating is ×2, then ×8 to get your PC speed rating. So go from clock speed to
Oh,
DDR
okay.
speed.
Wait. Yeah, no, I got what you're saying. Sorry. Yeah, you are absolutely correct. Sorry. So DDR, double data rate, meaning you can do twice the clock speed. Sorry, I had a memory slip. So you got twice the clock speed. So double the clock speed, which is 100, gives you your DDR rating. Now, if it was 4 times the clock speed and you had 100 megahertz, this would be 400. And then you take this number and you multiply it by 8. And that is how you get your PC rating. Now, you will need to have a rough idea on this math because for a couple things. One, being able to read a RAM chip when you see one, because they will have some of this information on the side, being able to read and understand what it is they're actually telling you and understand, which one would be a better purchase. So clock speed, that's how fast the computer clock is running. If you're running it dual data rate, that's double the speed. It's times 200. And then to go from your speed rating to your PC speed rating, it's times 8.
I
To
have
go from speed rating to PC speed
You multiply it by 8.
times 8.
Mm-hmm. And in a question, you may just be,
Oh.
you may be only receive the PC speed rating. So if I see a question that has PC 1600, I know I can work back to DDR 200 because that may be what the answer that they're looking for. Hey, you got a PC 1600. What's that in your DDR rate? It's going to be DDR 200. So you'll be able to work back from it using the same divide by 8 or multiply by 8.
And in the
And
exam, they're not going to give you an obnoxious number to try
Right.
to multiply or something like that. It's going to be pretty
Clean
something
big numbers,
pretty
clean big
straightforward.
numbers, yeah. And that number can be DDR2, DDR3. Those things change, and we'll talk about it, but we're just trying to get you to look at it. If you look at it, step back, you notice that every last one of them, if you divide that PC rating by 8, you get your speed rating.
Yeah. Yes, Scott.
Yes, just want to clarify because I love math, sarcastically. Just want to clarify for whenever we want to figure out what the PC speed rating is, it's always going to be what, clock speed times the DDR speed rating?
No. So you have the clock speed, which is your base rate. That's how fast the clock is, that quartz crystal. How fast that
Okay.
quartz crystal is ticking. Now, if we know we're using DDR SDRAM, which is the double data rate RAM, we know
Okay.
we're moving at twice the clock speed. So we take that clock speed. If it's 100, we know we're doubling it. So it's now 200. So that is your base DDR speed rating. So to know what the PC rating is for that computer, because of that, we now have to multiply that number by 8 to get the PC rating.
All right, so just to clarify, it's clock speed, double it, which is the 200, and then you double it again from 200 to 16.
No.
Oh crap! I know I missed something.
Hold on. Let me
Clock
break out
speed,
the
you can multiply
pen
by
here.
8 and then multiply by 2.
Oh,
and then
no,
you'll
sorry,
get
yeah,
the
multiply
PC
by
rating.
8.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead, Will.
Well, no, actually, Professor, I think I'm sort of maybe stuck like Scott here. Again, I may have missed something. Is there a way that you can break this down? Where,
Whiteboard it, Kelly. Put it on the whiteboard.
Hold on.
Yeah, maybe if we could see like a physical example, that probably could help out. Just
is there a way? Yeah, and if there's a way you can, I didn't mean to cut you off, Scott. If there's a way you can connect that with the pins, I like with everything, with the DDR and how it makes sense.
I'm trying to find the whiteboard.
I'm trying to find it for you too. It should be under. Oh, maybe. Oh, you're sharing the screen. You should be able to. Right. Let's see.
All right. So you have. All right. So you got your clock speed right here. It's giving me straight lines. I don't want straight lines. So you got a clock speed right here. Clock speed. Get a darker pen here. Clock speed 100. So here's your clock speed.
Okay.
Because this is double the data rate. So this is DDR1, generation 1 double data rate. It's going to be double it because remember it was like a was it an eighth note where you're hitting at the bottom of the clock and at the top of the clock. So for each turn of the clock, you're clicking 2 times instead of 1. So
Okay.
we're going to double it. Since we're, going to be able to hit it twice per cycle, that'll get us to 200. To answer your question, my handwriting in real life is actually worse than this. So this number here now is how we get our DDR speed rating.
All
Make
right.
sense?
Yes.
So that's how we get from clock speed to speed rating for this type of RAM. So then we're going to take this number here, multiply it by 8. And that's how we get this number. So let me take 200
Challenge for all of you.
times 8. Give us 1600. Make sense?
It makes sense on how you got the
Yeah.
PC speed rating. All right.
So let's do this. All right. So say we had a clock speed of stop annotating here. You still have kind of notes over there to work with. Say we had a clock speed of 200. What would our data rate be?
We still see your annotation from the other page.
I know, I left it up there.
Okay.
I just kind of giving them a,
You didn't want them to look at the other stuff. I got you.
You want us to know what the DDR speed rate would
400.
be? It
Yeah.
would be 400.
400. Who said that?
Jackie, Avery, and Scott.
All right, so 400, that is absolutely correct. So now you got all that, so it's 400. Now, what would be your PC rating?
3,200.
3,200.
That's it.
Okay.
Excellent. And you can do
Oh,
that with
that's
almost any.
not that hard. Okay.
It makes sense now?
Yeah,
No.
definitely makes sense now. I get it now. So double it down first time, then you multiply it by 8, and then that's what your PC speed would be.
There you go. And that is for generation 1 SDRAM. Yes,
Cool.
Jackie, your hand up.
Thank you, sir.
Do what? All right, Jackie, you have your hand up?
Yes, I was looking at the others and I was doing the other ones, and of course the math is not coming out exactly right, but are they applying the math rule as well? The 133, I got 166, and then I had the
Well, 133 times 2 would be 266.
266, right? But the last one, I didn't get exactly 21, but I kind of like just rounded off.
And that might be what they're doing.
Yeah, you're off by just 1 point. It comes up
Yeah.
to 332, and they rounded up to 333 because we're doing it in bits of 8. So
Well,
and then we go ahead,
yeah,
Kelly.
Go ahead, Marvin.
And when you multiply that with your speed rating, you'll get close to 2,700.
Yeah, and what it is they're trying to make it just, they're rounding it off to make it easier to read. Kind of like when we said like 1 gig doesn't mean 1,000 megabytes,
Right.
it's N24. So that's what they're doing, is they're just kind of rounding it down to make it a little easier to read. So you're looking for the number that's going to be close to the calculation you come up with. But again, they're not going to give you really funky numbers like this. They're going to give you something that's pretty clean and straightforward on the exam. But the biggest takeaway is so when you look at a RAM chip, you understand basically what you're looking at and the specs they're giving you. Yes, Will.
And I understand now, Professor, about how to get the speed rating and the PC speed rating. I understand. It makes sense now. Just one last thing, because I may have missed it. The clock speed. Just you told me about how it goes up and then goes down.
Yeah.
There's like a clock. What
Yeah,
clock
it's a
are we
cycle.
talking about?
It's a cycle, like turning all the way around. And
In the
so,
computer.
yes.
Okay.
And that's that quartz crystal. It's vibrating.
Okay.
So from it, and so like what it is like when it turns, the vibration starts, the vibration stops, vibration starts, vibration stops. It's the
Okay.
on and off, like binary, on, off. So that's that vibration. That's setting the tone, the pace for that computer.
Okay, so it's like a vibration that's electric. Okay, I'll probably
Yeah, so
look
when you
up.
put electrical current through a quartz, as we were talking
Yes.
about, it vibrates in a consistent and predictable way. And so at the rate at which it vibrates, that is the clock speed for your computer.
Wow. Okay. Okay. It sort of makes more sense. Clock speed. Okay.
Yeah, and then based on that clock speed, that's setting the tempo for everything, because the computer has to work in sync. It has to pulse out everything at one time. Otherwise, you can have collisions of data. Like if you're trying to send data up and down a line at the same time, that data will collide and it won't get through. So they have to operate on these pulses. And the doubling of the data rate allows you to send 2 pulses per clock cycle. So for each turn of that clock, it's able to pulse once at the bottom of the time and once at the top.
Doubling of the data rate will do what? It will transfer per clock cycle.
It'll send out a pulse instead of 1 time per clock cycle. It'll send out a pulse twice. So at the bottom of the wave and at the top of the wave. So down here and up here. So as it's going, like it'll send a pulse at the top and then back at the bottom, top and then at the bottom, as opposed to just only sending a pulse every time it comes to the bottom.
It's like a currency pulse of
Yes.
electricity.
Well, it's a pulse of data. So it'll send out bits every twice every pulse.
Wow, this is more like physical science now. Okay.
So a little bit. Yes,
Thank you.
Focus.
That makes more sense now. I got it. Okay.
No problem.
Thank you.
My question was why we always multiply it by 8, because data transferring 1 byte. That's why we always multiply it by 8.
I believe that is the reason why. I don't know the exact specific reason, but I believe it is because it's a single bit or byte going out at a time. And that's kind of their unit of measure. So I'm fairly certain that that's what they're doing.
Thank you.
No problem.
I think you're right, Kelly. I can confirm that, but I'm pretty sure Mogus, you're right on it when with 8. There's 8 bits, so 8 bytes because of the
8 bits equals, yeah, to a byte.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then we have the micro DIMM right here, which, as we said, was the tablets, smaller notebooks, things like that. That has a 172 pin connector. I highly recommend making a quick small deck of the different types of RAMs with the amount of pins they have, just to kind of cycle it through your mind. We have it here on this. It also is in the book, but just as a quick reference to kind of quiz yourself on it, make a small Quizlet deck for types of RAM with the amount of pins they have, because they do ask questions on this on the A+. All right, dual channel technology. And this would basically be using 2 RAM sticks together in a single bank, operating as one to increase the throughput. And obviously this technology is going to depend on the motherboard. Older motherboards will not have this technology. They will operate as a single channel. And but more commonly nowadays, you will see dual channel, which is why you see these different colors where you have like the red and the black, or the yellow and the red. And in this case, the 2 yellows would operate as a single bank. The 2 reds would operate as a single bank. When you are installing memory into these banks, they have to match. You cannot put a 32 gigabyte memory stick in with a 16 gigabyte memory stick. It will not function properly. And then over here, same goes. It's a little bit different color scheme, but they're operating in banks as well. The reds are a single bank and the blacks are a single bank. So this will be 2 dual memory banks. Yes, Emmanuel, you are correct. For your first stick of memory, you can install just 1. But if you're going to move up beyond that, I believe you go to 2, and then you have to go to 4 beyond that, unless you're operating off of an older memory board, memory bank. All right. Any questions about dual channel technology? Just basically it's 2 sticks of RAM operating on as like a single unit. All right. Now we're getting a little more complicated. Generation 2 DDR. So dual data rate times 2. Scott, I promise you this will be about the only time you're really going to be dealing with math. When you're dealing with the RAM chips. So remember single dual data rate generation 1. So DDR1 was hitting 2 times a clock cycle. 1 at the bottom, 1 at the top. It was like an 8th note. So instead of a quarter note hit every time the beat hits. 8th note, it's hitting twice, down at the bottom and at the top of the cycle. Now we're getting into 16th notes. We're doubling the data rate again. When we've upped the generation to DDR2, we are now moving at 4 times the clock cycle. You're hitting at the bottom, you're hitting at the top, and you're hitting at the middle. So as you're going up, it's like boom, 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 boom. So you're doubling that data rate 1 more time. So as we can look here, let me go ahead and get my little annotator out. We have our base clock speed, 100. Now, if this was a DDR, first generation DDR, our DDR input output speed would be 200 megahertz. But generation 2 doubles that 1 more time. So it is now 400. So you're doubling it from clock speed to the original DDR. You're doubling it again to the generation 2 DDR. And we take that, multiply it by 8 like we did the last time. That gives us our PC rating. And that PC2 right here, that's a nice way of them letting us know that this is a DDR2 or 2nd generation. Yes, DJ.
So if so as long as your RAM is able to handle it, would you be able to put like just to be clear, DDR is the chip, right?
Well, DDR just means double data rate. So that is a type of RAM. So DDR SDRAM, that is a type of RAM chip that you're using.
Oh, okay. So
go ahead.
I think you answered it. Yeah, I think I get it.
Okay, so this increases that clock speed just 1 more time on the other. The math is still the same. You're just doubling it 1 more time from the beginning and paying attention to this number right here, which is your generation, and tells you how many times you need to double it. So if you just see DDR, you double it once. If you got another number after here, that tells you you got to double it again. And DDR RAM uses a 240 pin connector on those blades. So if somebody tells you I got a RAM chip with 240, that should indicate to you that you were operating on a 2nd generation DDR RAM. Yes, Scott.
So from my understanding, so far, when I'm seeing the DDR, as long as you follow the same formation, no matter which level it is, you'll get the same result. We're always looking for basically the PC speed rating, correct?
Yes, the PC speed rating tells you about the speed that that RAM can send out information.
Okay, all right. Thank you,
So
sir.
I mean, it all operates off of the same like methodology. You're using the same basic formula. It's just knowing exactly what you're looking at. All right. So again, DDR uses a 240, DDR2 uses a 240, a SODIMM DDR2 uses 200 pins. So again, like I was saying, just quick notes, make a little quick slide deck of RAM chips, how many pins they have. So you can kind of quickly quiz yourself. So it's because unfortunately it's one of those things that we kind of brute force memory. All right. Pull this out here. All right. Questions so far? All right. Now we're moving up to DDR3. What do we think that means?
Multiply it by 3.
Are we doubling again?
What'd you say, Frank?
Tripling it.
Are we doubling again?
We're doubling it again. Not tripling, you don't triple it from the beginning, you're doubling it. So you double it once and then you double it again.
So you're doubling it 3 times?
Huh?
You're
Yeah, we're doubling it 3
in the beginning.
times.
Okay, so it'll be 100, 100, and okay. All right, I'll stop here. I'll let you finish, Professor. Excuse me. I got you.
Okay. So we'll do this real quick. Annotate. Give me a pen. So we had this 100, this clock speed 100. We had a single DDR generation 1 chip in there. It would operate at 200 megahertz. We've doubled it once to 200 for a single DDR1 chip. We double it again, we get to the DDR2, which kicks us up to 400. We're now in 3rd generation, so we double it again. We're now up to 800. So we've doubled it 3 times. And then going to multiply that times 8. And that will get us 6,400 for PC speed rating. And often they are nice. They will tell us what generation we're operating off of here. So it says PC3. Let us know that it is a DDR3 or 3rd generation RAM. Questions about this so far? Now, when you get to generation 3, they also will support memory banks of triple channel and quad channel. So based on what we've been talking about, what do you think that means?
Oh, it can support like 3 or 4 at a time instead of a pair.
So you'd have 3 RAM chips in a single, 3 RAM blades in a single bank, or 4 in a single bank working together. So when you get to DDR3, it allows for that. DDR2 and below can only operate in single or double channel banks. Up here, I guess we're going to drop the presentation in student paste in Slack, so you'll be able to go back over this and look at it. Pay attention to your pin counts as they change with each generation. So you'll be able to know when they say 240 pin, 204 pin, it should give you an indicator whether it is a SODIMM, a microDIMM, and what generation it is. Any questions so far? Are we overwhelmed, underwhelmed, whelmed?
Whelmed.
Whelmed? Okay. All right. DDR4, what does this mean?
means that we are doubling again and doubling again and doubling again.
Don't worry, Scott. It only goes up to 16 generations.
Ooh, Lord. All right.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. DDR4 is about as high as they'll go on the 8 plus. So yes, as you're saying, we are doubling it yet again. Excuse me. So you have your clock speed, double it 4 times, gets you up to 1600, and then that'll give you your speed rating or your bandwidth and microtransaction, and then we'll give you your speed rating. So DDR4 is about as fast as it goes for right now. Runs at a lower voltage rating, 1.2 volts, and they use a 288 pin and not backwards compatible.
So DDR4 doesn't have an SODIMM chip or pin set?
288, well, I don't know. As far as this, they do not have the pin count for the SODIMMs for 4th generation. I think at the time this was, the exam was written, they did not have the 4th gen SODIMMs out yet, so they weren't part of the actual exam. One thing that I will continue to reiterate throughout the course is where this deviates from real life. So bear in mind, this exam was written 4 years ago. Technology doubles every 18 months. So the 8 plus is a little bit behind. They're about to come out with a new exam, I think next year. They're going to be re-upping the exam, updating all the information and standards and all that fun stuff. So this information is about 3 years old. So you will hear us say, hey, for the purposes of the exam, this is what you need to know. In real life, here's where we are right now, because things have changed. So, all right. So DDR4 is about as high as they go. That's about as fast as it is with regards to the exam. All right. Here's a basic picture of SDRAM. And in order to kind of give you an idea as to generation, they move around that notch that we were talking about right here. They've moved it to a different location. Here, here. So you don't accidentally use the wrong generation RAM in whatever motherboard you're operating off of, because it won't be able to function if you use the wrong generation. They just make it kind of easy to where you can't even install it. And a lot of this stuff isn't backwards compatible. So it works out that way. So that was why we were saying when you're about to install the RAM, lay the RAM module down at an angle in front of the actual RAM bank slot, just to give yourself a quick eyeball, make sure that notch that's in there lines up good, and then you can straighten it up and plug it in, and you know it works. There we go. Latency. All right. RAM essentially responds to electrical signals at varying rates, and latency basically just means like a response time or a delay. Now, when you're talking about how much memory you have, you want absolutely the biggest number you can get. So the more memory, the better. And usually it becomes a cost factor, like how much is this RAM going to cost me versus, you know, how much I actually need. So another thing you're going to be looking for on these chips is a latency. And what that latency means is how long it takes for that memory to go through an entire cycle. Like how many clock cycles does it take for you to run through the entire memory chip and then start back over? So if I have a 10 gigabyte memory chip and it takes me 20 cycles to go through that entire memory chip one time, and then I have a different memory chip that's also 10 gigabytes, but it takes me only 10 cycles to get through that exact same amount of memory, I'm moving through that memory at a much faster rate. So I get a much better processing speed. It has a much faster reaction time. So when you're dealing with latency, the lower the number, the better. And they will use two different ways to notate it on a RAM chip. You see it right here. Column address strobe, or CAS number, or CL for clock cycles. If you're looking on the RAM chip, here you go. There's that CLS number right there. It's a low. There's another CLS number, or CL number right here. Of the top and the bottom. See here. Layla, can you tell me which one of these RAM chips will be faster just based on this last number here?
You got it, Layla.
Which one of these RAM chips would be faster based on this last number? The top one or the bottom one? This one is a CL6. This is a CL9.
The bottom one?
Amber, you want to help out?
The one on top.
Okay. Why is that?
It's the number 6 is less than number 9, and the lower the number, the better it is.
There we go. With regards to latency, which is your delay or your reaction time, the lower the number, the faster the process. So whenever we're looking at RAM chips, we want to see that low number. And you'll see them get lows like, CL3, CL2. They are, and understand that the lower that number gets, the more expensive that RAM chip's going to get too, because you're paying for that lower latency and reaction time. So basically, this is what they mean by latency. So it's the reaction time, lower the number, the better. And then
quick question.
Go for it.
As you said, the lower the number, the better. Just curious, would there ever be a negative number?
That would be awesome.
Like
I don't know if there ever will be. I don't think there will be. But that would be some awesome RAM if it got into negative numbers.
We can only dream, Scott.
Right.
Yeah.
So the lowest number would be 0 then, basically.
Yeah, currently.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be time travel.
Man, you're silly.
All right. Now, this is where we gotta, start looking at things here. We have data integrity and error detection. Like, how do we know if the data we're receiving is good? And RAM chips have some things in that can help with this. So some of them use what is called a parity bit, which is essentially a method of ensuring that the data is what it's supposed to be. And essentially, like, it's an extra bit of data that's kind of tacked onto the end And it will tell you whether or not it's supposed to be even or odd, like the block of data you received. And it uses that extra bit just to verify if it was correct. It doesn't do anything with that. It can't correct that problem. If it receives it and it says, you know, it's supposed to be even, but it gets odd, and that's incorrect, it'll send back a request and say, hey, I need that information again. It's wrong. So let me get my annotator out here. So if we had a nibble, 4 little blocks here. So that's 4 little bits of data. And then say they're going to tack on a parity bit, which is a 5th little piece of data here. So this would be a nibble, and it's 4 little bits. So say we get like a 1, 0, 1, 0. So that'd be a nibble. And so we would add this up. So you got 1 plus 0 plus 1 plus 0. So I get just 2. So that's an even number. And all we're looking for in this is even or odd. That's all we care about. That's all the parity bit cares about. So, and the parity bit at the end is trying to make it even, the total thing be even. So in this particular case, we already have 2, so it's even. So our parity bit would be a 0. And basically that tells us if this is 0, this little nibble of information that's coming across should be even. Now, if it comes across like this, there's a 1, a 0, a 1, and a 1. And this bit right here tells us, and this is supposed to be even, and it's 3, so it's an odd number. This parity bit's going to tell us that's not correct. I need you, and then it'll send it the information request back to the CPU and say, hey, I need that data sent one more time. This is wrong. That's essentially what a parity bit does. It doesn't correct it. It doesn't manipulate the data. It just basically says whether the information you're receiving is right or wrong based on whether or not that code coming in is odd or even. And it's just one little extra bit of data tacked on to a block of information. Does that make sense to everyone? You get a thumbs up. All right, so let's do this. Oops. Yeah. Redraw this here. All right, Miss Jackie. What should my parity bit be here based on this? I have 0, 0, 0, 1. What should my
1.
parity bit be?
1.
1.
Nice.
Everyone agree with that? All right, you're seeing some? Get some thumbs up, or if you agree. All right. Well, she's absolutely correct, because the parity bit is going to make that sequence even. So if the sequence comes out odd, we have 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 1. That's an odd number. So our parity bit's going to be a 1. Now, if we were the processor and that parity bit came back and it was a 0, what would that tell us?
It's not right.
It's not right. We need to send it back to the CPU and say, hey, I need you to resend it. That information did not come through correctly. Yes, because basically all the parity bit, Scott, all the parity bit is saying is whether that sequence that came in is odd or even. They may do it with a single byte. They may do it with 20 bytes. They may do it with 1,000 bytes. And then they will have that information at the end, that parity bit, which is basically a verification for you. Yeah, we could do one more. But that means you got to do it, Scott. All right, so we're making it a little harder here. It's not going to be fully accurate, but we're going to make it 6 bits. And then get our parity block here. Draw it out. Let's do 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. All right. So on that, Scott, what should this parity bit be?
I don't know if, oh, now it's appearing. I guess I'm having a slight delay. Just give me a second.
What would we call a delay?
Latency.
There we go. I'm having some latency issues.
Nice.
Okay, so that's 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0. Okay. So that's 1, 1, 0. So that should be 1 then.
Why would it be a 1?
Because the 1's even it out.
Very good. Excellent.
Yeah. Oh, I love this one. All right.
So you got it. All right.
Thank you, sir.
William, good work, Scott. Very good work. William, you had a question. Or did we lose him?
He may have stepped away. I dropped 2 videos in chat from Professor Messer speaking about exactly what Kelly's talking about. One was about the RAM. The other one was more about the integrity and the parity and things of that nature. Just FYI. William, you're back. Did you want to say anything before Amber asks her question? Or are you good?
Yeah, excuse me for that. I was briefly interrupted for a quick moment. I wanted to ask, I know you're drawing out the boxes, and right now I do not understand. I don't understand what that is. It's the parity. What does it have to do with what we just finished watching? If you can.
Let me help him out, Kelly.
Go for it.
So, William, yes or no, computers run on binary. Binary is the system in which computers run on. Yes or no?
Repeat that again.
Your computer runs on a system called binary, zeros and ones. Yes or no?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So how can we ensure the integrity of those ones and zeros? We use something like parity. Parity is designed to make sure that those ones and zeros come across in a manner in which we will want them to when data is moving. So it's like a checks and balances. So what Kelly was doing was showing how if by any chance zeros and ones don't come across the correct way, that parity bit will correct it for us, or will check for, it won't correct it, but it'll acknowledge that it didn't come across the correct way. So that's what it was looking for. It'll check, okay, I got how many ones, how many zeros, what should this be? It should be a 1 or a 0, and it'll do it. It'll let us know what it should be. It'll let us know we're having an error coming across. And that's what he's doing.
Quick question, Mr. Keen. I think I sort of follow. So going back to the clock speed, and the DDRs that are the connectors to sending messages to for it to function properly.
Yep.
The data integrity, the parity is making sure that there's a sequence following in a certain number, right?
There you go.
And
there you go.
And if that order is not supposed to be the way it's supposed to go, then
that parity bit will acknowledge it. Hey, that didn't come across correct. That's exactly right. Keep in mind the whole chips and all that is all about how quick we can move those zeros and ones. We see other things. We see zoom. We see pictures. The computer doesn't see that. It sees zeros and ones. So to make sure that those zeros and ones are coming across accurately, we have what is called parity to ensure the accuracy of that, to let us know if it's coming across correct or not.
One way to think about it, if you remember, it's this really, really old classic film called The Matrix. And when they would look at The Matrix, and they were on the Nebuchadnezzar, and they were sitting there looking at that ship, and they had all that code coming down.
Yes.
That was how the Matrix was, the way the computer saw it. The way they saw it was when they were actually in it. So that was just kind of, and then the guys who stayed on the ship and helped out the pilots or whatever, they looked at it and they're like, yeah, because I'm so familiar with it, I just see, a person, a car, a building, I see that stuff because I've been working with it so long, I just understand it. But the computer doesn't understand it the other way. They only know the ones and zeros.
Okay, so now going back, I sort of follow now. Now going back to that boxes that you were doing, you were just showing the sequences. What are those boxes? And can you break it down one more time, and that way I can.
One more time. Well,
yes, thank you, Professor.
How about I break it down one more time, but I'm going to add a level of difficulty.
Sure.
Because that'll bring us into our next step. Let me get Amber's question real quick first. Go ahead, Amber. Okay.
I just wanted to know if the videos, the Professor Mess videos and the student pace Nearpod for this, could that be posted in Slack too?
Sure can.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. All right, so we're talking about the parity bit. I'll walk through it one more time, but then we get into ECC, or error correcting coding. This is a type of RAM chip, and it is a little extra chip that gets added on there. And it is very expensive RAM because it, much like the parity bit, it does the parity bit. So we will walk through that example one more time. But the ECC has the power to correct an error as it comes in up to a single bit. So if it's being sent in, and it can do this on the fly, you typically will not see this in personal computers for two reasons. One, it is highly expensive, and two, it's slower. So you're going to typically have this in servers. So they're going to have huge RAM banks with these ECC chips in there. That is the error correcting coding. So we'll walk through an example of that, which will include the parity, and kind of give you an example. So let's get our little block.
I kept wanting to say that the parity was correct, and I had to catch myself.
Yeah, no, the parity just warns.
It just acknowledges.
Yeah, it acknowledges like, hey man, there's a problem. And then it sends it back
right
to the CPU and says, hey, I need you to send it to me one more time because what you sent me was not right.
Like a bad order.
So then we got our parity bit here. So let me change this up here. So we got 1, 0, 1, 0. So this would be our nibble that comes across. This parity bit makes whatever is sent across. It could be a nibble like 4 bits, it could be 10, it could be 1,000 bits in a row. And then you use this bit, this little parity bit here, every so often to verify what you've sent. So when this comes across, it's already even. And the whole point of the parity bit is to make that string even. So since it's already even, in order to keep it even, let's put a 0 in here. So that's our parity bit that tells us everything that came before it for that block must account to an even number. All right. So say we had a slight hiccup in power. We lost a bit. This comes across, we still have our parity bit. So what the error correcting code will now do, it'll look back at this code and say, hey, I had a little disruption in the data flow right here. This bit didn't come across. I know because of this 0 parity bit that this must be an even number. So on the fly, it's going to say, hey, I know what's missing. I know what to do. I'm just going to drop a 1 right in there. So it does not have to send that information back to the CPU and request it again. It knows what's missing, puts it in, and allows that information to continue processing. Does that make sense?
Professor, I almost follow. Again, last part, when you add the 0, that's the parity bit. Once that
This
happens.
box in red,
Yes.
that's the parity bit.
Right. Once the parity bit is added, the even number, which is 0, what happens then?
Okay.
It corrects itself?
Yes, for error correcting coding.
Okay.
What it does on the fly, it is able to repair 1 bit of damaged information. So say if this 0 is missing, you have a slight disruption, 0 is missing. It comes across and it's 1 blank 1 0. That's your data stream. Parity bit says this is supposed to be an even string of data. So that 0 tells you it's supposed to be even. So when you go back and you look at it, you go 1 blank 1 0. My number's already even. So I know on the fly, I can go ahead and plug this bit in as a 0. Because then it stays even. The data has now been corrected and it can move on to help formulate the program of whatever you're doing.
I got it. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions with regards to parity bit and what it does? And error correcting coding, or ECC. We good?
Wait, so you said there's an error when it comes up as odd, correct? Or like
Well, we know, like if there is a missing bit, we can use that parity number, this number here, to determine what that missing bit was. So like if I erase that 1 and I got 1 0 blank 0, that's my data stream. My parity bit says, hey, this is supposed to be an even number. I can look back at that data stream real quick and see where that missing number is and know that the number I've got right now is odd. So I need to make it even. So in order for me to make that correction, come in here, drop a 1 in there. And now it's 1 0 1 0, even number. My parity bit also says it's supposed to be even, so I'm correct. Yes, Avery.
I think I have a decent analogy that might help
Okay.
someone. All right, so I assume everybody's been to Wendy's and you've ordered a 4 for $4 before. So if you just imagine that the parity person is going to be your low-level employee, they're paid minimum wage, and they know that you ordered a 4 for $4, but you only got 3 items. And so they notice that and they're going to send it back. So that way you can get the correct order. So you'll get your 4 items, whatever they're supposed to be. But like your error connection or correction coding, that'll be like your manager. So when they see that you ordered a 4 for $4 and they notice that you they got the fries, the drink, the chicken, but they're missing the sandwich, they know, oh, I can just grab that sandwich and put it in the bag. and hand it to you.
Look at Avery with the analogy, man. I like that. I like that. And it has a lot of it has feet. I can walk with that. So the manager fixes it on the fly, which is ECC. You don't even notice that it's happening. It takes care of it. But that low level hourly person, you may get that bag, look at it and see that it's bad, and you have to give it back because they gotta address it. It's not corrected. They gotta send it back to address it. But that manager makes it so it gets out the door and it doesn't come back because he fixed it before it was all said and done, before it got to you. Nice, Avery. I'm gonna have to put that one in my bag, man. 4 for 4.
Any questions with regards to?
Come on now, William. You got to give him credit for that one, right? You like that one, right?
Yeah, that's a good one, Avery.
And
I
my
like it.
props, Avery. That was pretty good. That helped a lot.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. There we go. Registered and buffered memory. My throat's getting a little dry. Marvin, can you?
Man, I was gonna get in and whenever you wanted to stop. Here we go.
I'll jump back in just a minute.
No problem, I got you. Since we got Mr. 4 for 4 up there, go ahead and read this one for me.
Registered or buffered memory that has a register between it and the memory controller. The register stores bits of information in such a way that systems can write to or read out all the bits simultaneously. It reduces the load on the controller and allows the device to support much more memory than would be possible otherwise. It is used for servers. A possible effect is an introduction of latency and a drop in performance.
But we wouldn't mind a tad bit of latency for a system that doesn't fail. So that's the drop off. We'll take a little latency to ensure consistency and not a minimum performance issues. I'd rather have it registered or buffered is what you want to call it. And the regular memory will be unbuffered, meaning it doesn't have that option to address it. Servers, for the most part, because we want to keep those guys going, we don't want them to have many hiccups. So like I said, you won't notice it, but it's actually loading up some of that and holding it before it can send it out to ensure that that consistency is staying there. So appreciate that one, Avery. Let's see what we got. Got to go over here. It's going to take just a little bit of a second for it to flip, but it's flipping. The next one is going to be access speed. And Miss Jackie, if you are available, I'll get you to read for me once it changes.
Access speed is the amount of time in nanoseconds that it takes RAM to provide the requested data to the memory controller. Ensure that add-on memory is the same speed as or faster than existing memory. Do not mix memory modules with different speeds in the same bank, the row of slots for adding memory. Check the motherboard specifications for the required speed.
Thank you, Miss Jackie. Let's see here. Do you guys remember the picture of the motherboard when we had the yellow and the red memory slots? And they were like yellow then red, which means 1 and 3 are the slots that work in conjunction with each other, and 2 and 4 work. So 1 and 3 will be yellow, 2 and 4 will be red. The goal is don't mix speeds when you're working inside of those slots, because if anything, if you have a fast speed memory and a slower speed memory, it's gonna either not work or it's gonna work at the slower speed. So you're losing performance by mixing and matching. So you don't want to do that.
All right.
And let's see. I want to know if there was anything else I wanted to add on that. And this one hits home with you, Miss Terry. I'm glad that you read it. It's talking about RAM, and if you want to upgrade your RAM, things that you'll look at. Say for instance, we had that example, 1 gig, it can go up to 4, so you got 3 more. If the 3 that you buy that your system can handle was a higher speed, you're still not getting the most out of that. You may have to replace all of them, even the one that you have in there, to get the most out of your system. If the one that you had purchased or came with the system was slower than the other 3 that you bought. You want to make sure that that speed is consistent across the board. Thank you, Ms. Jackie.
I'm good. I got a drink finally.
All right.
Thank you, sir. All right. SPD, or serial presence detect. So basically when your computer boots up, the BIOS kind of sends out a signal that everything wants to know what it's working with. And this particular chip on a RAM module basically tells the BIOS, hey, here's what you're working with. Here's my speed, voltage, everything I got all in one place. And so the BIOS knows exactly what it's working with and make sure everything matches up and it can continue on past post. And it is a little microchip that is added on to a RAM module. So let me go back here a little bit. Oh, there we go. So on these prior examples here, so you have these solid state memories, which is basically what is the brain of the RAM. And then right here, you will see there is a little tiny microchip added right there. That is the SPD. Every single RAM chip has this, because it's what tells the computer what it is it's working with. It's basically just a little piece on there that just says, hey, here's my specs, here's who I am. Any questions with regards to SPD? Or serial presence detect. Another great Quizlet bank to create is one just with acronyms. So you can, get used to what each acronym means, because throughout this course, there are lots of acronyms. They love acronyms in IT.
So on every RAM, there's a SPD chip.
Yes, every RAM module will have an SPD chip. And like I was showing you real quick, I can jump back real fast, only a couple slides. So you have your main solid states on there. That's the bigger ones you'll see on there, right in a nice little neat row. Then they'll have one offset just a little bit, and it'll be significantly smaller than the others. That's the SPD right there.
Yep, got it.
All right. Now we're getting into a little bit lighter subject, not as heavy as what we've been going through with math and the parity and the error correcting code and all that fun stuff, the number of pins. We're just going to be looking at basically, when do you want to upgrade that RAM? And it's pretty straightforward. I believe it was Jackie. Were you the one asking about that one the other day? So here are the basic symptoms you would be looking for when you're wanting to, when you should think about upgrading your RAM. It's general slowness. Windows gives you an error. It says insufficient memory. And the other one, which most people don't cue in on, is excessive hard drive access. So if you have a mechanical hard drive and you hear that thing working overtime, I think it's going tick, 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 it's constantly moving. What's essentially happening is when you have run out of RAM in your RAM banks, your computer creates what's called virtual memory. It essentially creates a temporary RAM setting on your hard drive, and it starts using your hard drive as a secondary RAM component. Now, this is nice because it doesn't crash the computer right away, but it will slow your computer down massively, and it can chew up hard drive space pretty quickly. And they call this the page file. So when you've got 50 windows open, and then you start watching a movie, and then you think, oh man, I got to send these emails with these large files to a friend of mine while I'm watching this movie, and I have all my research up here, and your computers just can't keep all those balls in the air. It starts basically looking over at the hard drive like, hey, can you hold this for me? And start pushing stuff over there so that the hard drive can basically hold on to it for them for a minute so that the RAM can finish doing what it needs to do, then go back and grab that other stuff and use it. It starts juggling these processes around to try to keep the system functioning, but it comes at the cost of speed. And if you have a already almost full hard drive, then that computer doesn't have much space to work with. So that can slow you down even more, or even give you your insufficient memory error that it's showing right here. So heavy hard drive access, where it's constantly trying to read and write to that hard drive, tells you that you've basically run out of RAM and your computer is now using what is called virtual memory. Does this make sense to everyone?
So I got a question. When it's in the virtual memory,
okay,
is what's ever in there it's still running, or is it just kind of like holding it in place until you go back to it?
Well, what it is, it's essentially trying to use your hard drive for a process for which it was not necessarily intended, which is essentially like RAM. Remember how RAM doesn't necessarily hold on to something and keep it. It's basically, as that process is coming through, it grabs that process, holds it for a second. When that process is used, it lets it go and it moves it on. So it'll start using your hard drive for that. But the problem is, remember we were talking about the North Bridge and the South Bridge? Your RAM modules are connected to the North Bridge. So they have that real short connection speed right to the CPU. So it's a real fast access. Hard drives tend to be operated off of the South Bridge. They move in a little bit slower. So not only are you've used it up and you're using a drive for something and it wasn't necessarily intended for, you're now having to use a much slower connection to that actual memory source. So like, instead of having to go, from, here to, like your car or something like that, to get your car keys or get something out of your vehicle, like your backpack or your book, you now got to walk from here 3 blocks down the road to grab that book and come back. So it's taking you much longer to do the exact same thing because you've run out of space. I know that was an absolutely terrible analogy. I was trying to think of something on the fly and I kind of derailed it, but
You got the point across. You got
got the point across. I'm like, what would I store in my car for a long term? Nothing. My book for class. There we go. So yeah, so that's basically it. So not only you're using another memory source, but you're having to go through a much slower slower connection speed to be able to accomplish that. So that's what will cause significant decrease in speed for your computer. All right. What to consider when you're upgrading or replacing. How much RAM do I need? That's another one, if you're going to be increasing your bank and like kind of have an idea of how much you need. How much is allowed? Not many people are aware of that one. Does anybody off the top of their head, maybe Emmanuel, know how much RAM you can use with a 32-bit operating system? There you go. Good call. 4 gigabytes of RAM. That is the maximum amount of RAM you can use with a 32-bit operating system. That's it. If you plug in 8 gigs of RAM, you've wasted 4. I won't even see it. It only allows 4. And much like BIOS only allows a 2.2 terabyte hard drive, if you have anything above that, it's not going to recognize it, not going to use it. So we have to upgrade to a better system in order to utilize more RAM. So when you move up to a 64-byte system like Windows 10, you can actually install what currently seems like an obscene amount of RAM. I think it's like 3 terabytes or something like that. It's It's pretty high amount of RAM that you can put in there. Right now, it seems like there's no way we would ever use that amount of RAM. Bear in mind, not too long ago, people had 500 megabyte hard drives. That's the maximum amount of storage space they had on their computer, 500 megabytes. And then when they were coming out with the 1 gig hard drives, they were like, man, you would never fill that up. Well, nowadays, when you first install your operating system, there goes 20 gigs right there. That's before you even put any applications on there. So that's one of the things you need to pay attention to, what type of operating system they have. So what is the maximum amount allowed by your system? Then how many and what kind of memory modules are installed? You got to match speed and latency and generation. All those things need to match up. So the other thing to pay attention to is how many can fit on your motherboard. We had somebody run into that in class. They said, my RAM, I need to get more RAM so my computer could speed up, opened it up. They didn't have any extra slots. They'd already maxed out and hadn't realized it. And they weren't able to upgrade to a faster speed either. How do I select and purchase the right modules for my upgrade? You definitely want to review the documentation. Well, you will hear that a lot. You want to make sure that it is compatible with the type of motherboard you're using, and before you go ahead and upgrade it. And then lastly, how do you physically install the new modules? All right, we just talked about this right now.
You did.
Limit for 32-bit operating system is 4 gigs of installed RAM. Anything above and beyond, they don't care. It will not happen. Windows 7 and 8, you need at least 2, but more is better when you're talking about 64 gig or 64-bit Windows. Here, I think they allow up to 128 gigabytes of RAM for Windows 8, 7 allows for 16. And then 10, I think, allows for over a terabyte. It's pretty high. Uh-oh. Whoever wants to take the first place spot from Mogus, now is your time. We have a time to climb. Mogus, you have a title to defend, sir. All right, let's go to space this time.
Well, you in space, are you climbing or are you kind of like floating up the mountain? It's not 420, but things to make you think, Yes, ma'am. Let me find it for you. One sec. Put the link back in chat.
Oh, for Nearpod?
Yeah, for Nearpod, just for people who may have been just watching and not actually logged in there. We got you got 7 people in there? 8 people, okay.
It's 8. Give it another couple seconds for anybody who wants to jump in.
There we go. I think she was the only one, Kelly. So if you want, okay. There we go. They popped in there.
Up to 10. All right. Question number 1. The current computer uses DDR2. I want to upgrade it with DDR3, the same motherboard. Which will work? Uh-oh, Manuel's out front. Maximum amount of RAM for a 32-bit system can have is 4 gigabytes. True or false?
Hey Scott, tomorrow when we do Cahoots, you'll be able to use it on your cell phone, so it'll help you with your latency. So that'll be cool.
$32-bit maximum is true. 4 gigabytes max. All right, how many pins does a DDR3 SODIMM have? I know it's mean asking that right after we just went through the slide, but you know, we figured.
Very mean, Kelly.
All right. 204 pins. All right, which RAM is faster? Tip, there is no DDR4 as an answer. Give you a little bit of time to look at those. All right. Manuel, Avery, Ashton, good work. Frank and Frank, or DJ and Frank rounding it out. Good job, everyone. Excellent.
Could we go over that one with the 3 pictures? Because I really saw like 3 of the same picture.
You really saw the same picture? All right, let me see if I can get a good view of it. Give me a second.
While he's looking for that, DJ, what's your question?
Well, I just had a way of figuring out like how to distinguish between a DDR1, 2, 3, and 4.
Speak on it.
Well, if we could get like a picture or something, I don't know. With the DDRs 3 and 4, the little parts where there's the little grooves in them.
Mm-hmm.
With the later generations, they're more square, whereas the earlier ones they're more circular. So you can tell 1 and 2 have the circular like notches in them, and 3 and 4 have the square notches. So after you figure that out, all you have to do is tell where the little notch in the pins is, and that's how you can tell whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Once you already figure out which generation it is by the grooves of the notches on the sides.
So you're looking at the physical characteristics of the RAM module versus the interesting.
Yeah, they looked in most of everything that, or most of the pictures that you've seen, like that's like they've all looked exactly alike. So I just thought that, you know, maybe that's a way.
So
to
I
identify.
right now I'm holding. Okay, let me do this. Kelly, if you're not ready, I'm still doing. I'm gonna turn my video so you can see how my background. Let's see. So right now I'm holding this up. So you're gonna tell me right now, DJ. You can tell me what is this is DDR 1, 2, 3, or 4. You can tell me right now.
Can you move your finger from the niche on this? That's either a 1 or 2.
It's 2. I mean your way is working. I wish I can find a DDR4 to see if it's square on the side, but this
Like
is
the
a
thing-
PC2 DDR2. So
The thing is, I just didn't for the 1 and the 2, I just don't know the exact position for the niche, like, you know, on where the pins
the
is.
notch here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can tell it was the second one of the first 2 generations because of the things on the sides, the notches on the sides.
That's neat. Did you guys catch that? So well, we got to confirm it. So let us confirm it, DJ. But you're telling me that because this is circular, it already put your mind into the mind frame of a DDR 1 or 2 RAM chip.
Yeah.
And then you look here, if you could possibly see where it is, okay, I like that. I'm gonna do some research. Emmanuel agrees. I'm gonna do some research. I can't confirm, I take your word, but I can't confirm it to, as law just yet. So I'll come back to you, okay? Appreciate it though. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
I can't show it right now without ruining the student pace, which also includes people from other cohorts. So I can't show it, but I'll find a way to get a good picture of it later. All right. How to find out how much memory is installed. I think somebody had mentioned this earlier. You can use a system control panel to report the amount of physical memory is installed, or you can actually go into the BIOS. And once you go into the BIOS, it'll tell you exactly what is installed.
Oh, sorry,
I'm not sharing?
Professor.
That's awesome.
You're not sharing.
It's almost as good as me being on mute. Always helpful, isn't it? All right, so you can use your system applet from the control panel, and it will report the amount of memory you have, or you can actually go into the BIOS and it'll tell you which memory bank slot you're using, how much memory is installed in each one of those slots. And this is also a really good place to go and check once you've installed memory modules to make sure the computer sees them. So this is a good, double check to make sure, because sometimes you may have these banks turned off and you want to go back in and turn them back on, and also verify that the computer can see and lets you know if the RAM is seated properly. Because if you're using all 4 banks, let's say 1 or 2 of them aren't seated properly, it will only see 2 of those RAM modules rather than all 4.
Question, William, can you come off mute for a second?
Yes, Mr. Kane.
Second picture that you see, the one below, is that regular BIOS, or is that UEFI? Look at how it looks. Look at how we talked about it, about the 2 versions. Which one do you think this is?
Well, I mean, if we just talked about it recently, I'll be honest with you, I had to briefly step out real quick to the restroom.
Recently has been today. We mentioned it today. We showed you a picture of a UEFI BIOS, and we showed you a picture of the regular BIOS, and we was like, look at some of the cool features and how things look. Which one would you say this is?
Well, I know that the bottom picture is an older version. It's not the
okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
And
which one is the older version?
Older version, as in like we still
BIOS, UEFI. Which is older?
Oh, BIOS from the, yeah, BIOS.
So what would you be looking at here?
Where in the picture would I be looking at it?
Yeah, which one of those would you be looking at here?
The BIOS version.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I was just trying to make sure everybody's paying attention, locked in. This is the older version. This is the one where you can only use your keyboard. You can only use function keys and arrow keys. The UEFI version will look so much better, and also you can use your mouse to maneuver on top of it, control the speed, overclock, things of that nature. You can do more. It's more graphical, user friendly. I just wanted to make sure you guys picked up on that. And everybody else was on the same page, correct? Couple nods. Okay.
Got it.
All right.
All right. All right. How do I physically install memory modules? All right. We have to keep rehashing this. What's the first thing you do when you turn off a computer? Amber, what's the first thing you do before you open a computer up?
Unplug it, turn it off, unplug it, and then you hold the power button for 5 seconds to release the charge.
Beautiful. Absolutely, absolutely correct. All right. After that, remove the panel on the PC, the side of the tower. To get access to the motherboard, you go ahead and most often you should have pretty clear access to the actual RAM modules, be able to unlock them out of the RAM banks, pull one out. And then when you are about, well, obviously before you reach in, put on your ESD bracelet, or stay on an ESD mat, use ESD gloves, all the safety precautions, tie back your hair, take off your jewelry, all those fun things before you start working with electricity or, in electrical equipment. And then remove the old blade, line up the notch, put it in an anti-static bag, pull out the new one, line up the notch inside, lift it straight up vertically into the slot, push down evenly on both sides, and you will see those little tabs on either side click up and lock into place. Your new RAM module should be in place. Turn on the computer, go right into the BIOS and verify the new memory modules are being read by your computer. Pretty quick summary of what you need to do. Here, it gives you a pretty good visual of getting it lined up, even distribution of pressure. And then when it goes down, you will hear an audible click. And these tabs right here will come up and lock into those notches that are on the side of the RAM modules, securely holding that RAM in place. Questions so far? Got a quick little video. It's about 1.5 minutes. Guy goes over the installation of RAM pretty quick. I need to share my computer sound.
Hey, that's my guy.
There you go.
Linus is cool.
That's literally like where I learned half of my PC knowledge is from that channel. I literally watch it like every day.
Okay.
Very
quick. Back from his old channel from where he used to work at NCIX and everything.
Everybody hear it okay?
Yes, sir.
Need a bit more memory? Installing more RAM is an easy upgrade that can noticeably improve the performance of your computer. Before you get started, make sure you have the right type of RAM for a proper configuration. RAM is like batteries. You'll want to use an even number of the same size and speed. If you want 16 gigabytes of memory, you'll want to use a pair of 8 gigabyte sticks or 4 gigabyte sticks. Some computers may use sets of 3 instead of pairs, so make sure to check your chipset's instructions before running out and buying any. Also make sure your computer can support the speed and type of the RAM you've purchased. Most modern computers support DDR3 up to 1600 megahertz, but you'll need to check your current setup and motherboard specifications to know for sure. The first step is to ensure you aren't going to fry any chips with static electricity. If you have an anti-static wristband, connect it to the bare metal of the case. Next, remove any old memory you don't plan on using by pressing down on the tabs on each end of the stick. Before you just jam the new RAM into the slots, check your motherboard's manual to see if there's support for dual channel or tri-channel memory. This will either be indicated in the manual for your motherboard or by colored pairs or trios of different colored RAM slots, which will dictate where the stick goes. If there are any, follow the instructions for the installation listed there. Usually this means installing parts of the set into matching colored slots. Line up the gap on the bottom of the RAM with a notch in the slot on the motherboard and gently set it in the correct place. Press down firmly but carefully on top of the RAM stick near the ends until it clicks into place. Close everything up and turn your power supply back on. When you boot up the computer, you can use your system profiler to ensure the correct amount of RAM is shown.
Son, we're grabbing. Pretty straightforward. Did he have on a ESD bracelet? I don't know. Shame on him. I don't think he had. Did he have one on? Did you see it? Okay, good. Good job. I'm sorry. Good job. No shame. No shame. Anybody watch Game of Thrones? Shame. Shame. You're muted, sir.
You're muted, Kelly.
But at least I was giving good hand gestures. The only thing I would have said that I would, criticize was he was doing everything one-handed, which I imagine he was holding the camera with the other hand. So he wasn't using equal pressure on both sides when inserting the RAM chip. He was like just kind of mashing it in on either side. And that not good technique could lead to a broken RAM chip. All right. That was just a quick one, kind of summed everything up really good. All right, after upgrading or installing new RAM, possible pitfalls. If it doesn't snap firmly into place, the notch doesn't line up at all, it may be incompatible. It's probably the wrong generation of RAM you're using. That's why we want to check and verify with the documentation before we actually do the upgrades. The documentation for the system and the motherboard may be missing or not available on older PCs. If that is the case, what's one place we can go to look for that? Anyone?
Google.
Google. And Google will probably lead you to the manufacturer's website, which will absolutely tell you if it's compatible or not. If the RAM value has not changed, the module might not be installed correctly, or the bank may be disabled. So if you have 2 installed already and you're adding 2 more and your total RAM count hasn't gone up, it probably means they weren't installed correctly or the banks were turned off. So you'll need to go back into the BIOS, make sure the bank's turned on. And if the bank is already turned on, you're going to have to open it back up, make sure that the RAM blades are installed correctly, they've gotten fully inserted, and then they've clicked and locked in place. If the computer does not boot and beeps are heard, what does that mean? When we hear beeps, what is that?
The post test.
Post error. Very good. Thank you, Frank. So we get a series of beeps, computer doesn't boot, post error. So what do we do when we get a post error?
Count the beeps and look it up to see what the error message will be.
Excellent. Excellent.
I hear you, Amber.
If you're fancy enough to have one of those nice little postcards, that'll tell you. I know some of the newer, nicer motherboards, Manuel was pointing that out yesterday. They actually have that post error count reader on the actual motherboard itself. But typically we'll use the postcard error, or you actually just count the beeps and look it up on the manufacturer's website.
Also, Kelly, if just as a quick reference, if I'm taking RAM in and out and then I get a beep after I put new RAM in or take RAM out, I got a good feeling that it's RAM related if I didn't touch anything else.
If you didn't touch anything else, yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
but I mean, still no.
The computer.
Yeah.
If you completely field strip that computer down to the motherboard, you have no idea what could.
You have no idea.
Correct.
This is true. This is
so
true.
that's where the post error comes to help you out. Warning signs and troubleshooting. The BOSOD error, also known as the blue screen of death. That is pretty famous for Windows. Another one is system works fine when you first start up, but begins to have problems and slow down later. It means It's just, it starts getting sluggish. Right off the bat, you seem okay, but then as soon as you start opening up a bunch of applications, it just starts lagging and falling off. Freezing and hesitating, system moving slowly, system does not boot, and beeps are heard instead, like the post error we were just speaking about. Those are basic warning signs that whatever it is you opened up and touched, didn't like what you did, probably got to go back and fix it. So we got to figure out what it was that didn't work correctly, go back in, take care of it. One way to correct this problem with RAM, and which is why one of the first things almost every tech support person in your life you've ever spoken to asks, have you tried restarting it? Have you turned it on and off again? Right before they ask, is it plugged in? Because when you turn it on and off, you clear all that RAM memory out, and then it's able to kind of refresh itself and start. So any programs that might have lagged or frozen up get a chance to kind of restart and refresh themselves. Another thing you could do, enter the BIOS, set the post to disable abbreviated start to check for memory issues. You could also take that RAM module out of your computer, put it in another computer and see if it works just fine. You could check for dust, faulty fans and stuff like that if the system is overheating, because overheating can cause the system to run sluggish and or crash as well. Test for a test power supply for failing, overloading, or overheating. Now, we'll get into this, but power supplies fail in two ways. One is completely, that's easy to diagnose, it just doesn't work anymore. The other one is a slow death, and it is one of the most annoying and problematic things to actually troubleshoot, because all of the problems are intermittent, and it kind of seems like it's all over the map. But they do have a power supply tester that you can hook it up to, and it'll tell you if that power supply is good or not good. There's also software you can use to troubleshoot Windows utility program, make sure that the memory is not the issue. It could be something else causing these particular problems. All right, we just went through all this. Add or remove computer. I will allow, you know, when you go back through it, read through the steps, we kind of just went through this again. Are there any questions with regards to the steps of installing RAM? Good. All right. Do you have any questions with regards to RAM, with regards to this entire T session? We're all good on parity bits, different generations of RAM, how we calculate that PC number, error correcting, all that fun stuff. We're all good now? All right. Go ahead and stop the recording.